the cockpit voice recorder in order to figure out just how this happened. NBC4's Robert Kovacic is here with that investigation. Robert.
Carolyn, you see right here behind me our sister station WNBC sending these images tonight out of LaGuardia Airport that has reopened with reduced capacity while that investigation is underway. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy telling NBC News tonight the FAA is specifically looking into whether air traffic control staffing figured into the incident, but making it clear viral rumors that only one air traffic controller was working at the tower at the time is not accurate. We do know from the NTSB that at least one controller has been removed from duty and will be interviewed about what happened last night. It began with an Air Canada Express regional jet coming down the runway, then about 2/3 of the way plowing into a Port Authority rescue and firefighting vehicle, slamming into it so hard it sheared off the aircraft's nose, killing two pilots.
It just lifted in the air. Holy.
About 40 people were taken to the hospital, including Joe and his fiancée, Peyton.
We're jolted forward, but immediately, maybe a second or two later, it felt like a crash. These two pilots who unfortunately lost their lives did everything in their power to stop the plane and slow it down at the very last minute when they saw the fire truck there.
He took this video moments after getting off the plane. You can see people climbing out of the wing. Air traffic control recordings reveal the truck had just requested permission to cross runway 4, trying to make its way to another plane that had just declared an emergency because of an odor on board.
Truck 1 and Company LaGuardia Tower requesting to cross 4 at Delta.
A controller giving the go-ahead.
Truck 1 and Company cross 4 at Delta. Truck 1 and Company crossing 4 at Delta.
Then seconds later, this urgent plea.
Stop, 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 Truck 1, stop, stop, stop.
And later in the recording, this.
We were dealing with an emergency earlier. Nothing. No, man, you did the best you could.
The NTSB and the FAA both on the ground investigating. As two sources tell NBC News, the controller at LaGuardia was doing two positions at the time of the accident, managing aircraft in the rainy sky, as well as planes and vehicles on the ground, something that's common later at night with less traffic.
They've been able to at least verify that the cockpit voice recorder was not damaged.
Incredible survivor stories are surfacing, including two Port Authority officers driving the fire truck who are expected to make a full recovery, and a flight attendant who was ejected from the plane and found in her jump seat about 300 feet away, according to her daughter. And we are learning that 32 of the 41 people injured are out of the hospital tonight. The mayor of New York praising passengers who kept one another calm amid the chaos that the governor of New York describes as a disaster the likes of which we've not seen here in decades. I'm Robert Kovacic. Carolyn?
Robert, thank you. And now to our other top story. Incredibly long wait times through security at some airports as TSA staffing shortages increase across the country. TSA officers have been without pay for more than a month because of the partial government shutdown. NBC4's Darsha Phillips is at LAX where things are smooth, but for some arriving passengers, it was certainly a long day in line. Darsha.
Yeah, Carolyn, definitely smooth sailing here at LAX when it comes to TSA lines. But as you mentioned, airports across the country, many of them not so lucky. Travelers having to experience gridlock at security checkpoints, so much so that it's even causing some to miss their flights. These women landed at LAX from Houston and shared pictures of what the TSA lines looked like at George Bush Intercontinental Airport.
We started in the basement. And it just went down and around and down and around and around. And then we went up an escalator. And we had snaking on both sides, down and around and down and around. And we were in that line for 4 hours and 1 minute. It was horrendous.
Luckily, the women who didn't want to give their names say they learned about the long lines at TSA just in time and got to the airport several hours before their flight. ICE agents, they say, were helping out with TSA duties, but things still moved extremely slowly.
I think that's the whole thing. Everyone realized it was nobody's fault that was there, and everyone just
took it in stride. A lot of people missed flights, but they were doing a great job at rebooking people.
About 60,000 TSA agents have been working without pay since the partial government shutdown February 14th, and sick calls within the agency are surging.
They're hopeless. I think that's probably the best word. I mean, because there's no end in sight.
Nearly 12% of TSA workers nationwide called out Sunday, according to DHS. But at some airports, 40% of their TSA staff didn't come to work. Many of the agents who are showing up are still recovering from the government shutdown in fall that lasted 43 days.
Now it's about survival. Now it's about food on the table for the kids.
In L.A., however, the local TSA union has been able to collaborate to keep agents at work.
I'll speak for our local union. We do have a really good relationship with management. We definitely try to encourage our folks to show up, as long as they can. We're also trying to reach out and get resources for our folks.
And Carolyn, all of this happening as there is a nationwide shortage of TSA workers. According to DHS, more than 400 TSA agents have quit their jobs since the government shutdown began. Reporting live tonight from LAX, I'm Darsha Phillips, NBC4 News.
Thank you, Darsha. In San Francisco, an incident involving ICE officers and a crying woman is getting a lot of attention today. DHS said the officers were escorting a mother and daughter through the airport Sunday. When the mother tried to escape, that's when she was arrested. That was caught on camera. Homeland Security said the woman had a final deportation order dating back to 2019. They will both be sent back to Guatemala. SFO uses private contractors as TSA screeners, so ICE does not have an active presence at that airport. Meanwhile, the Department of Homeland Security now has a new leader. Late this afternoon, the Senate voted to confirm Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin for secretary. Senators confirmed him with a vote of 54 to 45, with 2 Democrats voting in his favor and 1 Republican, Rand Paul of Kentucky, voting against the confirmation. Mullin replaces Kristi Noem, who the president fired earlier this month. All right, let's turn our attention now to the weather and a slight cool down this week after those record temperatures last week. Meteorologist David Bigger is here with a check of the First Alert forecast. David.
And Carolyn, it is slightly cool this week, but it is still above average for this time of year by as much as 10 to 15 degrees, depending on location. But it does look like we have more cooling potentially in the future, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Today we had temperatures reaching the mid to upper 80s and some low 90s across our inland spots. Downtown LA got to 79 degrees, which was yet another day above average for this time of year. In fact, if you look at the month of March for downtown LA, all the red colors here, those are days that were considered above average. The yellow days, those are days that we set records. And right now, March is sitting as one of the hottest Marches ever recorded in Los Angeles. I have a feeling that we will probably end up that way by the time we get to the end of the month. Looking at satellite right now, those blue shading here is low cloud cover and fog. You can see we've got some of that around the Ventura County coastal areas. It's starting to form up right now around portions of LA County and Orange County. In fact, a view from Long Beach right now, we're starting to see some of the low clouds get illuminated by the lights at the port. We're looking at seeing some of that patchy fog for the morning, but the afternoon we'll continue to see temperatures that are remaining warm for this time of year. But as I mentioned, next week we might have some more cooling. I'll show you what's behind that coming up in a few minutes. Back to you.
Well, now to the war in the Middle East. President Trump extended his deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to international shipping. He said today the U.S. will hold off on threatened strikes against Iranian power plants for at least 5 days.
We'll at some point very, very soon meet. We're doing a 5-day period. We'll see how that goes. And if it goes well, we're going to end up with settling this. Otherwise, we'll just keep bombing our little hearts out.
But Iranian state television put up a graphic reading, U.S. president backs down following Iran's firm warning. The Speaker of Iran's parliament denied that any negotiations have taken place with the U.S. The president's comments came this morning as the markets opened. The Dow closed up 631 points today. Mail-in ballots received after Election Day may not be counted in this year's midterm elections. Right now, the Supreme Court is considering the validity of a law in Mississippi which allows late mail-in ballots to be counted as long as they're postmarked by Election Day. California and about a dozen other states have a similar law which counts late arriving ballots up to 7 days after Election Day. Based on oral arguments, the justices appear divided on the issue. A ruling is expected in late June. Former students from the El Monte Union High School District say the district did very little to investigate their sexual assault claims. And last week, the state attorney general agreed, announcing their investigation found years of sexual misconduct and failure by the district to properly handle the claims. And now those former students are calling for the superintendent to resign. Guad Venegas is covering the story for NBC4.
For decades, students in the El Monte Union High School District were subject to sexual harassment, abuse, and assault, according to attorneys representing survivors.
We're talking about a man who was found having sex in a classroom. We're talking about a man who had married his student and then had her child.
Despite several cases going to court and the involvement of the California Department of Justice, survivors speaking today say those responsible were not always held accountable.
We continue to carry this heartfelt wrongdoing, not from one, by the entire staff